heard evidence that women in rural areas face overlapping vulnerabilities, like gender-based violence, visa dependence, all of those. So from a women's safety perspective, how well is New South Wales government currently identifying and responding to those compounding risks? And where are the gaps? And I think you've already mentioned some of them, but also what are some of the solutions that could be put forward?
I think there are still a lot of challenges in every state, including here, and particularly with the big population we have in New South Wales, we have a lot more regional and rural areas with these high numbers of these workers. So I think in terms of what are some of the gaps? I mean, I've talked about some of them. I think specialist, cultural services. I think regional hubs, so more place-based solutions is really important in many areas. But I think in this area, it's particularly important that having the services in Sydney isn't very helpful in many cases. So having regional hubs of services, and it still might be far away for some people, but it could be a lot closer than what currently exists. So I think that's important. More investment in interpreters and translators, or other models of service that it doesn't always have to be more money. It can be doing it in a smarter way. I think also funding for more specialist services in the domestic and family violence space, for more specialist support for women on temporary visas and women in these categories. So I think that a lot has improved in many areas, but I also think there's still a lot that needs to be done, and also for the police too. So I think again a lot has improved, but I think more training for the police in this area too, and more, I think finally I would say community awareness raising. So I think some of it is also just not being aware of avenues to report, that you don't have to report to the police, that there are other ways of reporting things and getting help that don't involve the police. There are many communities, including Aboriginal communities, but certainly in some communities be a lot of shame in calling the police. So just knowing that there is 1-800-RESPECT, or there are other places you can call that don't involve the police where you can get confidential advice as a first step. A lot of women in this situation wouldn't know that, and so I think some of it is awareness raising, and how do you get that information into communities in language.
And does your office or agency engage with other offices other agencies like the Anti-Slavery New South Wales, Safe Work, and say Multiculturalism New South Wales, to identify and respond to, say, maybe not trafficking in with regard to this inquiry, but possibly you do, or slavery-like conditions involving women?
Yes, in some ways we do. I engage with the Anti-Slavery Commissioner a lot with Safe Work New South Wales. So they did have a sexual harassment task force, Safe Work New South Wales, that I was a member of. So we didn't look specifically at this issue in as much detail, but we looked at it across in general at a wide range of different areas. And Multicultural New South Wales, I do work with them quite a bit on different issues. So another thing I'm doing in my office and engaging a lot of the key players is, I think, and particularly when we're talking about domestic and family violence, but actually when we're talking about any sort of violence or abuse against women, we know from the Australian Bureau of Statistics that women who are experiencing violence, whether that's family violence, sexual violence, usually they don't tell anyone. If they do tell someone, it's more often than not, it's sort of an informal source of support. So it's a friend, it's a family member, might be a religious leader, someone in their community, rather than a formal source like the police or a doctor or a counsellor. So we know that these social supports or informal responders are critical, particularly for women in multicultural communities who are less likely to go to the police. So one thing we're looking at in my office is how do we upskill social responders and I'm doing a lot of work with faith leaders, and I think that's really important for this committee, is that, those religious leaders are often the first port of call for, often women will go and seek advice and support from their faith leader long before they'll go to the police. And so how do we upskill? I just had a roundtable in Coffs Harbour 2 weeks ago. We're bringing together faith leaders from across the whole region with specialist domestic family violence services and other community leaders from multicultural communities to bring everyone together to talk about how we can upskill and connect faith leaders so they know where to refer people. So I think upskilling social supports is just as important as looking at the formal services and supports that we have as well, because they need to know where to refer people.
So on that, do you have maybe some trauma-informed protocols that you would then, like after you've done a roundtable, able to deliver to those support services that are in those communities, so that there is a referral pathway instead of it just sort of ending with that family friend or someone like that, that there is a way that they can then refer the person in a respectful and respectful manner, so that they feel supported?
Yes. So I'd say a couple of things there. One is that DCJ's multicultural policy and engagement team has developed a series of seminars and workshops for religious leaders. So they've been delivering them around New South Wales periodically. So I think they are actually really, really good, and it would be good to see them upscaled. And I think the religious leaders who've done them have said they have a lot more confidence with what to do and how to respond and where to refer people critically. The work that I'm doing in my office on the social responders work is we've engaged Full Stop Australia, who are experts in sexual violence, but also they do a lot of work in domestic and family violence, to develop training to upskill religious leaders and other social responders, also sports coaches. And we're starting that initially in Lismore and Canterbury Bankstown, so 2 areas initially, to formally have training programs to upskill community leaders. So there's just 2 examples, but I think that could be a really powerful contribution to not just look at the formal services, but look at how to get those
definitely.
social supports. Yeah.